everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. My name is Jordan. Thanks for joining along with us on this journey of the 2023 NASCAR season. Let's go ahead and dive into it. We had rain affect 2 out of the 3 races this weekend, 2 of them being in Atlanta and 1 of them being at Mid-Ohio. So one would think that the rain affected both the races at Atlanta and not at Mid-Ohio. That was not true. So Mid-Ohio started off just wet, raining, deluge, as I like to say, just pouring down rain. Your lineup for the race ended up being, your top 5 was Corey Heim, Ty Majeski, Nick Sanchez, Christian Eckes, Grant Enfinger. One of the notable standouts was Marco Andretti. He started 7th. We'll talk a little bit more about that and some rumors that have been going around with Andretti. And we'll kind of just dive into that. So this was a caution-filled, beating and banging race, and it was wild. It was crazy. So we had about 23 cautions for 23 to 67 laps. Sorry, were cautions. 10 of them, 10 cautions. We had, supposed to be a 2-hour race. They're saying it lasted 4 hours. I mean, and if you watch the beginning of the race, even watching the recap, you can tell. I mean, it was just wet, people sliding around, spinning out. I mean, if you caught the last half of the race and didn't know what was going on in the first half, you wouldn't have known it was raining, except for you see people knocked out, where people were lined up in the lineups and so on, and how they finished. And, it turned out to be a regular race where you had 2 of the guys just drive away towards the end, but you had a lot of good racing. I mean, it was tough for a lot of these guys too, because they had a fast truck. Rain came out, they're running, and then people were sliding around, and it was tough. So the winner only won by 0.947, so not even a second. And I mean, it was, from what I saw, it was a good race. It wasn't as great as some of the other racing this weekend, in my opinion, but that just going forward. And I think that's mostly just because of the rain. Trucks, in my opinion, are fun to watch because you're not going out there and seeing the best of the best with honors. You're going out and seeing guys that are coming up, and then you see some of these guys that think they're, holier than thou, if I'll call it, where they're out there and they think their crap don't stink, and they come out and call out people for running into them, things like that. It's like, dude, you're in the lowest Cup Series race, with the exception of ARCA. We're going to leave ARCA separate, but you're in that low race, and you can't expect to be raced clean the whole time, because you got these guys learning, and it's going to happen. I mean, these trucks, they're a little bit tougher to drive than some of these other cars. I think Xfinity, they all have their own, what's the right word? They all have their own quirks to them. So, but going back off that beaten path, to go ahead and finish, we'll go ahead and start on 10 and go up. Tyler Ankrum, Nick Sanchez, Matty D, Ty Majeski, Matt Crafton, Ben Rhodes are your 10 through 5. Stuart Friesen, Christian Eckes, Zane Smith, and Corey Heim finished out the race as your top 4. So Corey Heim ended up winning this race. He started from the pole. He led about 30 laps. The other guys that led laps were Ben Rhodes, Matt Crafton led a lap, Ty Majeski, and yeah, that was pretty much it. And I think that was all because with the rain. But when you go back and you look at some of these guys and where they finished, Dean Thompson, he had a rough time. He got in an accident. He got in a rough time with the ARCA race the night before, where his teammate took him out. I don't fully know what happened with that. I just remember seeing some of the stuff where he just got taken out. And then we go on, and you see some of the other guys that we follow on this channel. Rajah Caruth, he had a heck of a hard time. I mean, he was just sliding around. I think we'll see what happens with him going forward and see how that handles it. Haley Deegan, she finished 26th. She claimed she was running up in the top 10. All right, sorry, not top 10, top 20. And she was saying that she was having transmission issues where it wasn't staying in gear, and she got spun around, and that's kind of what caused her to finish 26th. We also did mention Marco Andretti. He finished 19th and going forward with that. So we're going to be jumping forward with this one. We have a week off again, and then we're going to be running at Pocono. Pocono is just 2 weeks away. We'll see what happens. That one's always a fun one to watch. You're going to have some wrecks just because of the way multiple bankings on that. It's a triangle, not an oval, not a road course, nothing like that. So it makes it interesting. So we'll just keep going on with that, and we'll see what happens. Going into driver standings, we have Corey Heim, Zane Smith, Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes, Grant Enfinger, Christian Eckes, Carson Hocevar, Matt DiBenedetto, Nick Sanchez, Matt Crafton. That is your top 10 for regular season. These guys are running crazy and wild now. Then we go dive into the playoff ranking, and it's heating up. We only have 2 races left. We have the Pocono race, and then we have their race after that. So we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winners out of there. So your non-winners that are not quote unquote locked into this race, well, they're not even locked in this race because we're so short. Ty Majeski, Nick Sanchez, Matty D, Matt Crafton, Stuart Friesen, and Tanner Gray on the outside looking in. And when I say looking in, Matt Crafton and Stuart Friesen are close. Friesen is breathing down Crafton's back. He's only 1 point back. Then Tanner Gray is 24, and then we go up to 49. So, again, some of these guys, you're looking at 49 with Tanner Gray. I mean, who knows? You know, Crafton, Matty D, Nick Sanchez, these guys could have a bad race, not even finish, and Tanner Gray, you know, burn it to the ground, and he's running out there, and he makes it in. Because as we're talking about Stuart Friesen and Matt Crafton on that cutoff line being 1 point, you know, we're only talking, you know, only a few points between these guys for the cutoff. I mean, these guys are really close with the exception of Ty Majeski. I would almost say Majeski is pretty much locked in unless he has some kind of catastrophic event. But the last 3, 9, or, you know, 7, 8, or 8, 9, and 10, excuse me, those last guys, I mean, you're looking at those can flux a lot in these next few races. We'll see what happens with that. And I think it's going to be heating up. We'll see if everybody can keep it together and run and see what happens. So moving on to Xfinity. Xfinity race was pretty wild. It's pretty good. I mean, the hot car, in my opinion, unfortunately didn't win the race. And that was not so much somebody else's fault. It's just their gamble didn't work out for them, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and start off with qualifying. Chandler Smith got the pole. Jon Hunter got second. Sammy Smith third. Josh Berry fourth. Sam Mayer fifth. These guys, they were up there for the most part. And, you know, we had Riley Hurst, Josh Berry, Chandler Smith, Justin Haley, Austin Hill. As you can tell, I didn't mention Austin Hill, and he's the guy that I thought he was going to win the race. He was 10th in qualifying, but he had to start in the back with an issue. And my goodness, he ran through this race. These guys sort of separated out. They had the pack racing, which is what NASCAR wanted at Atlanta, a mile and a half. And, you know, it was crazy. It was enjoyable. I liked watching this race. Just watching people move forward and then just checking Austin Hill and just seeing where he was. I mean, good grief. He, you know, I think if he wouldn't have spun on lap 161 towards the end, that was the last lap that caused the last caution that caused the overtime. So I think if he would have turned, I think he would have been vying for first. I don't know if he would have ever gotten it. I don't know. We did have the big pile up. Because Sheldon Creed was up there running. He was doing well. He was part of this. It was an 11-car pileup. It included Sheldon Creed and Ryan Sieg. Ryan Sieg was doing really well this race. I mean, that was some of the best that I've seen of him. Riley Hurst was up there running around, but he had a tire go down. I mean, it just stunk. Unfortunately for him, he didn't stink it up. But anyway, moving on to stage 2. Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill, Ryan Sieg, Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier up there, top 5. Again, you have your colleagues coming. You had Hemrick, Chandler Smith, and Parker. Let's see, you had Parker Kligerman, but you also had Justin Haley. So Kligerman's not part of colleague. But anyway, you had Haley. They were up there. They were making their push. They had a chance to get 1, 2, 3 at the end of the race. They gambled. They lost. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, Parker had a strong running. He went up there. So our top 10, we'll start at 10, go to 1. Sammy Smith, Josh Williams. Congratulations to him. I didn't see too much of him. And it's almost like television kind of pushed him aside after his little event and didn't talk about him too much. They showed clips of him from Atlanta 1, but he got up there. Parker Kligerman, Kyle Sieg, Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer was your 10 to 5. 4 to 1, you had Justin Haley, Cole Custer, Daniel Hemrick, and Jon Hunter. Now, as I was talking about earlier, Kaulig had a chance to go 1, 2, 3, and they started running out of fuel, and you could tell that it was kind of like affecting them towards the end of the race. They gambled to stay out. Jon Hunter, he was running up there pretty strong this whole entire race. So, it's good to see him win some more, and he deserved it. It's not like one of these guys that just kind of came out of nowhere and won because he wasn't part of that, 11-car wreck or anything like that. Some of the guys that we were talking about that got caught up in the Ryan Sieg, Riley Hurst, Sheldon Creed. Then we had Anthony Alfredo got caught up, unfortunately. He got called out for the damaged vehicle policy, so he tried out and run again. Brandon Jones, Blaine Perkins, Kyle Weatherman, Mason Maggio. And, so you had a couple of these guys out there that just unfortunately got caught up in that wreck, and it stung for them. But, hey, going forward, we'll see what happens. They still have some racing left to do to get into playoffs, and we'll see how that all plays out. So just kind of going forward with that, let's go back and look at our Xfinity standings. We're going to go to regular season standings. We have Jon Hunter, Austin Hill, Cole Custer, Allgaier, Chandler Smith are your top 5. We have Jon Hunter and Austin Hill now with both 3 wins on the season. And then you have Custer, Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, Jeb Burton have some wins. Now, Jeb Burton's, it's going to be tough for him, I think, in my opinion, because when you look at regular season, he's looking on the outside in. But he's going to be pretty much locked in his playoffs because of that win. So let's go ahead and dive into the playoff ranking and see what happens here. Our top 3, Jon Hunter, Austin Hill, Cole Custer, don't really change. Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, Jeb Burton are your winners, so they lock out and they go to the top 7. And then you have Josh Berry, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Daniel Hemrick, and Riley Hurst sitting there. Looking at everything, I don't see Josh Berry getting knocked out. I don't see Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer's going to be on that rough, like we were talking about with the trucks, where if they just have a bad week and somebody tears it up and burns the world down, they might get out. The people that you got to look at are Parker Kligerman, who's having a great season. He is 6 below the spot with Riley. So I could see something happening there. Most of these other guys are, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these guys. Your next guy it's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting because we're looking at, number 11 has 475 points and number 13 has 434 points. I don't see anybody else. I see only Parker getting in and out. I don't see any of these other guys just because they're so far back. So I think that race is pretty much almost narrowed down to one guy. It's not like the trucks where you have quite a few guys sitting there vying for those final spots and see what happens. And trucks, you could also have some of these guys come in and win that are farther down. A Brandon Jones, somebody like that comes out and wins. Brett Moffitt could come out and win. It just depends. And they could be knock some of these other guys out of the playoffs because they have a little bit more running on their playoffs than trucks do. Plus, they have a lot of other. You had some of your Cup guys coming in, but it seems like your Cup regulars have been kind of tearing up more of the the Truck Series, and it might just see like that because it's amplified because of the less amount of races that they have. But we'll see what happens going forward with that. They will be running in New Hampshire, and we'll see. So, moving on to the Cup Series, they ran the Atlanta. They were the other race that was affected by rain. And we'll talk a little bit on my opinions on that. I've already had some kind of discussions with some people who own some of these Facebook channels, and I mean, they got very upset with people complaining about it. But hey, we'll move forward a little bit on that and kind of just, I'll tell you some of the information that I've heard and so on. But anyway, you know, when looking at qualifying, I mean, the Fords just tore this track up. They got the top 6 spots when it comes to qualifying. Eric Almirola got first, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Joey Logano, Harrison Burton, top 5, Harvick sitting there at 6th. Then you had it rounded out, top 10 rounded out by Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, Todd Gilliland. The Fords took it, and they ran with it for most of the race. As I had mentioned to some people, you know, Fords usually do really well. Either Ford or Chevy will do really well in qualifying at these super speedway-esque race. I'm lumping Atlanta in there because of the reconfigure. But then you'll see Fords come out and do well, or Toyotas. You never really see Toyotas come out and dominate qualifying as getting the top spots. But they're always there at the end of the race vying for it. And I think that would have been the case for this race if it wasn't for, in my opinion, the asterisk on this race. So just moving forward with that, you know, we had that going on. And so before the race even started, they were already talking about rain. Rain shortening this race. It's coming in. It's coming. We're going to race to the halfway point. So these guys ran and raced really well. I mean, this was some of the best racing that I've seen out of the Cup Series with this new car in a very long time. And I know I said that recently about somewhere else, but I think this one tops it for me. So into stage 1, you had Blaney, Larson, and Truex are your top 3. Truex came from 16th, I think it was, and he was just tearing it up. Christopher Bell was 6th, Tyler Reddick 9th, McDowell 8th, Cindric 7th, Joey Logano, William Byron. Logano was 4th, Byron 5th. Then we go into stage 2. Stage 2 had the mix around with some of these cautions and so on. Keselowski, Blaney, Buescher, Cindric is your top 4. A.J. Allmendinger was up there 5th. Bubba Wallace 6th. And these guys were beating and banging off of people. And, you know, it was good racing in my opinion. It wasn't so much too crazy. You had a multi-car crash happen towards the end on lap 123. LaJoie spun after contact with Eric Jones. LaJoie says that, you know, Eric Jones came up. TV said, you know, LaJoie came down. It's hard to tell because they were coming out of turn 2, so everything was kind of like straightening out and moving. And I really detest the fact that these television crews will sit there and they're quick to point things out. Now, I noticed that Junior came out and said, you know, I don't know, and things like that. But a lot of these other guys, you know, I feel that some of the racing isn't as subjective to straight down the line. So just going through that, we had a couple guys, Denny Hamlin and the 48 car of Alex Bowman. They got into it again. This is the second week that I saw that they've gotten into it. Chastain had a rough week race, and some of these other guys did too. You know, Tyler Reddick, I mean, he kept sliding around and losing. And that's the one thing about this race is you can lose air really quick off these cars on this racetrack just because of how fast you're going and things are moving around. I mean, again, this is a 1.5 mile oval that's pretty much been reconfigured into a super speedway, which is just nuts in my opinion. Eventually, hopefully I can go watch a race there. I'd like to see one in person, see how it is. But we'll go ahead and go into the finishing of the race. We'll go top 10. We'll go, again, 10-1. We had Stenhouse, Blaney, Haley, Yaley, Keselowski, Kyle Busch, was your 10-5. 4-1, you had Michael McDowell, A.J. Allmendinger, Daniel Suarez, and William Byron. Byron got his 4th win of the season. He has been leading just about everybody. And people that have led laps, you had Byron lead 19, Allmendinger 6. Now, a lot of those 19 that Byron led, in my opinion, were, I would say almost all of them were caution, if not a few. Then you had Allmendinger lead 6, Keselowski led 19. RFK came up there and made a move. Keselowski was very, very bold moves on the low end, bottom end of the track. Just like Truex was very bold moves on the top end of the track. I mean, he was sitting there and he was gaining like 6 spots at a clip just by passing people on the top of the track, which was nuts. He'd get out of the draft and just pass people until he got to around Blaney, and Blaney fought him, and spotter was telling, hey, he's coming up and he's passing people top. You need to shut that down. And once he shut that down, it was a little bit of a struggle for Truex to come back around and pass. I think, they claimed that he used up some of his stuff. But going forward, Keselowski led, Ryan Blaney led 20 laps. Cindric led 10 laps. I still think Cindric's a little too green, in my opinion, and people will probably think I'm crazy. You're talking about Daytona 500 winner. But, some of these Daytona 500 winners are just, you get lucky. I like Michael McDowell, I really do, but I think he got lucky on his win because of the accident that happened, and they called it. Chris Buescher led laps, so there's your RFK connection. Joey Logano led 11. Eric Almirola led 46. B.J. McLeod actually led a lap. I know Truex led a lap. Bubba Wallace led laps. And then lastly, Kyle Larson led some laps. Larson got caught up in a wreck where he was letting off, and I don't blame this on anybody. Chastain was around him, and Larson was just in between these two guys. And Larson let up, and you can't let up on this track, unfortunately. It's almost like you need to plow through the guy in front of you, or if you get let up, you're getting run over, and that's what happened to Larson. He let up, he got bumped, he spun, and he caused this wreck. Truex finished 29th. He's one of the guys that we follow on here. Corey LaJoie, 31st. Happened with Truex. In my opinion, they shouldn't have pitted towards the end of the race. They knew rain was coming, and they came in and took 2 tires. I think if they were going to do anything, splash and go or something, I think they hurt themselves by taking 2 tires. I know they'd probably say that their tires are running out and they were wearing them out, or they were just gone. But I think, look at some of these other guys that were out there. I mean, I think it was Byron. They were out there for a lot longer than Truex was. Truex was up there, and he had pitted beforehand and then came in, and he was hanging out with these guys that had not pitted. And then he came in and pitted, and it's just like, what in the world's going on? And, that's another thing that kind of frustrates me with Martin. I think with him, the psyche of his mind kicks him out of winning the race long before his opportunities are washed up. And I know that I've heard James Small and some of these other guys come out and say, hey, you need to shut up and run, because he just sits there and complains. And that is one thing that I'm not a big fan of Truex about. Is he complains a lot. And it's like, dude, just get in there. I understand you don't like it. Report it to the crew and then keep running. If you want to say, hey, these guys are doing this, doing that, just don't keep saying, oh, well, I washed up tires. I can't do anything. I effing can't do something. Sorry, guys, this is just effing stupid and this and that. It's like, I'll take James Small's side on that one, where it's just like, shut up and run the race, dude. It's not over with. Your talent's there. You've been doing it for almost 20-some years, more than 20 years probably, but just in the big time. I think it was 2005 is when he made his debut on the Cup Series. I could be wrong on that off the top of my head, but I mean, you're almost running 20 years in Cup, and you're going to sit here and still complain and mentally take yourself out of the race. Another guy, Ty Gibbs, he's been quietly running top 20s, top 15s, top 10s. He had a hard time this race, and we'll see what happens. They're all moving on to we're all moving on to the other racing going forward. So, when I say moving on to the other racing, we got New Hampshire coming up. But let's go ahead and dive into our Cup Series standings after this race. As we were talking about, William Byron got his 4th win. If you're a betting man and, if you want to put on your tinfoil hat with the conspiracies with Hendrick Motorsport and NASCAR, Byron's probably going to be winning this championship. You had Chase win it. You had Larson win it. Time for Byron to win it. And we'll kind of move on from there. So let's go ahead and talk about our top 10. We'll top 5 on this. William Byron, Truex, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Chastain, Denny Hamlin, That's top 6. So just looking at the top 2 for regular season, because regular season points, and I didn't mention this on the other guys to other series, but those are some big points that you want to get if you can get them going into the playoffs. And we're only talking Byron and Truex. Truex, he finished 29th. I think if he would have finished closer, you would have seen, if he would have finished up there higher, this would have been a lot closer gap, but it's still really close. We're talking 21 points between Byron and Truex for regular season. Then you have Kyle Busch right behind there. He's sitting 36 points behind Byron. So we're going to have a good race for regular season. That's not, in my opinion, not really talked enough about. We're always talking about getting to the playoffs and doing that. Oh, you're winning in such and such. It's like, let's start talking about the regular season standings too, guys, because, we have a race here. I think last year Larson just ran away with it. And, I still think we have this race here. It's going to be close. So when we go into playoff ranking, our top 16, we have William Byron, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Those are the guys that have won and are up there. So that's 11 guys that have won these races. We have William Byron with 4 wins, Kyle Busch with 3, Truex with 2, Chastain with 1, but he's been up there a lot, so he kind of jumps over Kyle Larson on points. Larson's had 2 wins. Everybody else had 1 win. Then we go into the guys that have not won, that stand a chance of getting kicked out of this. You have Harvick, Keselowski, Buescher, Suarez, Michael McDowell. Suarez did a really good job this past race of cementing and locking down some more information, more points for him for the good to get in. But, we're talking 3-point difference between, 15th and 17th. So it's going to be close. It's going to be interesting to see. Chris Buescher's up there at 100 points. Harvick's up there at 126 to the good. But, we still have quite a few races to go. Again, it's one of these things where somebody gets on a tear and does really well for 3 races, and Harvick comes out and DNFs 1 or 2 and finishes down below, 16, 17. He could see himself on the outside looking in. So our guys looking right now on the outside looking in, we have Bubba Wallace, AJ Allmendinger. He's one of the guys that I'm talking about. He finished 3rd, I think it was. He's 13 points below the cut line. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him make a hard run going up there. Same thing with Ty Gibbs. He's 26. So, those guys, I think we're going to see an interesting playoff push. And in my opinion, again, I don't expect it talked about so much during the race, but post-race, pre-race, during the week. Maybe it is during the week and I'm just not watching it. But post-race, pre-race, I want to see more push on playoff standings, regular season standings from NBC talking about it because, they pick a driver like, Keselowski, he's been doing so well, and he ran here well 6 years ago, and it's just amazing to see him, and we're going to sit down and talk to him about his historic run 6 years ago. Or, I get it, it's Kevin Harvick's farewell tour, and you want to talk to him about some of the history on different tracks. Okay, that's kudos to him. But I think more emphasis needs to be put on the playoffs because we talk about playoffs with everybody else, but it doesn't really get talked too much unless you're like, oh, well, he's got to win, so he's in the playoffs. And they put their little pylon with the playoffs, and that's pretty much all they talk about. I don't think they give enough airtime, we'll say, because they do talk about it. But so moving forward, everybody's golden child, as I'll say it, because he is America's favorite NASCAR driver, and it's my opinion because of Elliott. It's his last name. He's a good driver, but when you do silly things like he did where he broke his leg snowboarding, and I know we'll get back on this is tit for tat when it comes to they need to enjoy themselves, and they have such a small time period in between between the NASCAR seasons that they don't have enough time to do it. Okay, I get it, but at the same time, you need to face scrutiny if you're going to do this stuff. Same thing with like Bowman when he fractured his back racing. You want to go out and race? That's cool, but I'm going to give you a hard time if you hurt yourself. And I know some of the stuff. Hurting yourself is different from breaking your leg because you're racing and you don't know what's going to happen. Skiing's kind of similar, But at the same time, those are all preventative measures that you can take. Go fishing. Do something like that. Go hunting. Just make sure you don't go hunt with Dick Cheney. But anyway, Chase Elliott's sitting there 23rd. He is 60 points below the cut line. He's almost at a point unless something happens with some of these guys, because it's going to take more for these guys up top to get knocked out than these guys below to go past these guys up top, unless they win. So you're looking at 60 points. Corey LaJoie, 70 points below the cut line. He was tearing it up, and he just had unfortunately, it's been rough for him the past few races, and I think I like to see him kind of make that turnaround. Another guy that we talk about that won, because I think I mentioned 7 people won, actually 8. 11 people won. Actually, 12 people won. SVG was the other guy that won last weekend. Can't really forget about him, but we do because he's not vying for the championship. So, there's your standings there. Going into some of this news that we have going forward, we don't have too much to report now. Just follow the things that we have to follow or to report on are NASCAR is going to be doing some testing Monday and Tuesday, it looks like, next week after the New Hampshire race, that they're going to be testing new short track rules, and we'll see if it gets implemented in this season or not. It's kind of iffy on that. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. I don't know. I don't know what to say too much about that. It's a rules pack testing. I'm just reporting on it. And then moving forward, there is a report on Corey LaJoie is nearing a multi-year contract extension with Spire. That's probably smart on him with the effect that, a lot of these other big name spots that are opening up, they're getting pushed out to other people. LaJoie has been doing really well this season. I think it's a mix of Spire coming into their own, as well as LaJoie being the right guy to lead these guys. You don't want somebody that's a great driver and too full of themselves to help out a team, but you also don't want somebody that's willing to help out a team that doesn't have the experience. I think Corey fits that perfectly. I've talked about it in the past where I think Corey could be up there with Chase, Blaney, and those guys if he didn't take a different path than those guys did. But, he did, and he's stuck to his mantra, stacking pennies, and this guy has been doing it. He's been, in my opinion, burning the world down. It's not wins. It's not, top fives. But at the same time, if you look at where he was a few years ago, even last year, and see where he is now, he's slowly going up there. And I commend him because he could be out there complaining. You could see, and I'm not even saying complaining like verbally, but seeing his body posture, his, the way he handles himself is very, very good when it comes to where he is. I think he can take a mid to low tier team, Inspire, and continue to grow them and build them up even more than they are. And that's what this new car is supposed to be doing for these guys. So that's pretty much the report on that. We'll go back, and I know I mentioned a little bit about this. Andretti, he pretty much went out and ran the Mid-Ohio for Spire. But the rumor is, because I think it's Gainbridge is the name of the place. Gainbridge came out and said, we're going to sponsor Spire. Big company sponsoring a mid-tier cup team. So rumor has it that you're going to see Spire possibly be bought by Andretti. I know we were reporting last week that Andretti was looking to get into Cup Series at some point or into NASCAR. So this could be their way of doing it. I don't know. But let's go ahead and move forward with everything. And let's go ahead and talk about this coming weekend, the schedule, because you guys got to know what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and start off on Friday the 14th. We're going to have practice and qualifying on USA 5:05 starting off. 5:35 is going to be qualifying. That's for Xfinity. And then we have, moving on to Saturday, then we're going to have practice and qualifying for Cup Series starting at 12 on USA. And then we move into the race at 3 p.m. for Xfinity on Saturday, the M Better Health 200. And then we go into the Crayon 301 on Sunday. That is going to 2:30 Eastern start on US. Everything's on USA, and the Performance Racing Network is going to be holding the radio broadcast for that. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit further back. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to get that schedule out to you guys. The rain came and ended the race in Atlanta. In my opinion, they could have pushed this race up. They knew rain was coming. They chose not to. I mean, I think that could have been handled a little bit better. And I know a lot of people will argue with me on that, but that's that. And the reason I bring that up is because we're talking about New Hampshire. New Hampshire a few years ago, Kyle Busch and Martin Truex were sitting there running away from the pack, and they're saying, "Hey, it's raining." You got two guys saying, "Hey, it's raining. Hey, it's raining," and NASCAR didn't call it. And they both spun out. I think Denny almost spun out. He was running third. And, that's the infamous Kyle Busch rear-ending the pace car. And, yeah, that's NASCAR's fault, in my opinion. That should never have happened. But that's why I bring back up the whole rain with what they did. I think NASCAR's trying to get better at handling rain, but at the same time, if you know rain's coming, move your race up and get rid of some of your pre-race stuff on TV. If you want to do it, you're with NBC. Run it on Peacock. NBC's been pushing Peacock hard. Push it over there and see what happens. But anyway, let's see what happens going on forward with New Hampshire. This is a Toyota run track, in my opinion. Not saying that they've won the past few or four, but they run really strong there. So our next going up forward with the Cup Series, we have New Hampshire this weekend. Then we have Pocono, which we're going to actually be up. And then we got Richmond and Michigan. Those are your next 4 races, including this weekend. So I hope you guys get some time to watch some racing, and I appreciate listening. Be sure to check out my socials on YouTube, the Armchair Crew Chief, and then if you guys are on TikTok, I do post a few things here and there. Started doing that. And if you guys are coming from those social medias listening to this podcast, I appreciate it. Thank you. Hope you guys like, comment, share, put up some more information on what you guys want to hear, and we'll go with that. You guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll catch you next week.